Hi, I'm Ashy. Today we're going to continue talking about yarn. Now, my last video I talked about learning all about the yarn label and how to read it, and today we're going to explore in depth yarn weight, which is the thickness of the yarn. Yarn weight spans from size 0 to size 7, and 0 is the thinnest, 7 is the thickest yarn. This weight system doesn't get into crochet thread at all. That has a whole different numbering system, and I do have a video all about crochet thread that is linked in the description below, so you can check that out later if you're interested. So starting with the thinnest yarn, which is weight 0. Now this yarn isn't super common. I actually don't have any weight 0 yarn in my stash. I did find these examples here, one at Hobby Lobby that has like sequins built in, and then one from Amazon, but it's not very common. It's also called lace weight yarn. If you crochet with lace weight yarn, let me know where you found yours and if there's a really good option for where to find it, because I'd be interested to know. This yarn is best suited for making lace, hence the name lace weight, or like shawls or doilies or anything that needs to be really delicate and lightweight. The hook size that's typically recommended for this weight of yarn is a size B 2.25 millimeter hook, or some of the steel crochet hooks that are meant to be used with crochet thread are often recommended. Weight 1 is super fine weight yarn. It's also sometimes called fingering yarn, though size 0 I've seen referred to as fingering yarn sometimes as well, so that gets a little bit confusing. Rarely, some baby yarns are a weight 1 yarn as well. This yarn, weight 1, is also not as common as some of the thicker options, and therefore the colors and fiber types and textures of this yarn is going to be a little bit more limited than as we get into some of the thicker yarns. Though this one's not as common, many brands do sell this weight 1 yarn, and so I found this option from Lion's brand and also this other one from Hobby Lobby. I again don't have any of this weight. My stash starts at weight 3. I don't have anything thinner than that in terms of yarn. I do have some crochet thread, but no thin yarns. This is best used for baby items, really lightweight baby items, or like socks. And the hook recommended for this weight of yarn is anywhere from a B 2.25 millimeter to an E 3.5 millimeter hook. Weight 2 yarn is called fine yarn, and this one is sometimes called sport yarn or baby yarn again. So again, the names get a little bit confusing if you use the name versus the number, but weight 2 is often sport yarn. So here are some different examples of fine weight yarn from different stores. Again, I don't have any of that in my stash, but it is widely available at many different stores in many different brands. And this yarn, like weight 1, is often used for lightweight baby items or socks, but it can also be used for lightweight adult items or accessories. The hook size recommended for this is from B to G, so anywhere from 3.5 to 4.25 millimeters. Weight 3 yarn is also called DK, which stands for double knit, or light worsted weight yarn. Now this is where we start getting into some from my stash. So I have 2 different baby yarns. They're both from Baby Bee, which is a Hobby Lobby brand, but they are weight 3 lightweight. I don't know if that's gonna focus, but weight 3. And so once you get into weight 3, you can get a lot of variety in terms of textures and colors. Of course, my colors are ivory and white, but lots of different variety in this weight 3 yarn. And this is where we get into much more of the lighter weight clothing items or accessories, as well as lots of baby items, baby blankets, or even light afghans. The hook size typically recommended is from G to I, which is like 4.25, 4.5, up to 5.5 millimeters. Weight 4 yarn is worsted weight yarn. Sometimes it's called Aran yarn or Afghan yarn as well, but this is probably the most common weight of yarn, and therefore you're going to get the widest variety in terms of colors, fiber types, and textures. So my personal favorite in terms of weight for yarn, at least when it comes to acrylic, which is a synthetic fiber, is I love this yarn from Hobby Lobby. So this is my like go-to just standard weight for medium weight acrylic yarn that I use, and they have all the colors that you could possibly imagine. And weight 4 yarn is super versatile. It can be used for most clothing items, different accessories, and afghans. It can also be used, you know, for some baby things or for some household decor type items if you want. The hook sizes typically recommended for use with weight 4 yarn is I to K, and that's 5.5 millimeters to 6.5 millimeters. Now, all of these hook size recommendations can really vary. It just depends on what the final look of your project is that you're wanting, but on the yarn itself, it will usually give a recommended hook size for the yarn, so that's where I'm getting those from. Weight 5 yarn is known as bulky yarn or chunky yarn or sometimes rug yarn, though I think that's a little bit more of an older term. And I really feel like these thicker yarns have increased in popularity over the past few years. So we're getting to see more variety in terms of textures and colors and fiber types with this yarn. And I think that probably has to do with the increased popularity of finger knitting and finger crocheting. Or maybe I'm just noticing these yarns more and I didn't before. But if you've noticed an increase in these yarn availabilities, let me know in the comments. I'd be interested on your take. So here's an example from my stash of a weight 5 yarn. So you can see here that it's a thicker yarn than the weight 4 yarn. Let's see if I can get it to focus on that. And they are usually used for heavier clothing items or heavier blankets and accessories. They can also be used for rugs, hence the, like I said, older term of rug yarn in terms of the weight. Now, the hook size recommended for this is usually from K to M. So that's a 6.5 millimeter hook to a 9 millimeter hook. Now, weight 6 yarn gets into even thicker, and this is called super bulky yarn. So we had bulky is 5, super bulky is 6. And these also have been increasing in terms of availability, in my opinion at least. So I have a couple of different versions in my stash. So this one's a Lions brand yarn. And then this one was on clearance, and it's a Bernay blanket yarn. And so you can see here that these are just getting even thicker as we go up. So that is a bit thicker than the weight 5 yarn. Now, these are used for, again, heavier items. So heavier clothing items, heavier accessories like scarves or beanies, heavier blankets, also used for things like rugs and bags that are going to be a little bit more durable. The hook sizes recommended for this would be a size M 9 millimeter hook up to about a size Q 15 millimeter hook. Weight 7 is called jumbo yarn, and so this is going to be your thickest crochet yarns, and I feel like the thickness of weight 7 yarn varies significantly. There's some that are just slightly thicker than the weight 6 yarns, and then they go all the way up to like super big diameter yarns that are completely just made for finger or arm knitting. So this is an example that I have in my stash of a weight 7 yarn, and this one, it's a little bit thicker than the 6, but I feel like it's not like super crazy thick. I did have some that was literally like probably 4 times as thick that I did an arm crochet blanket out of. I'll link that in the description below. So this yarn is recommended for hand or arm knitting or crocheting or very heavy clothing items. They wouldn't have a lot of flexibility to them necessarily if you crocheted them tightly, but it's also really good for things like rugs and bags that need some structure to them and that thickness and durability. The hook size recommended for this is pretty much anything larger than a Q 15 millimeter hook. Or just don't use a hook and use your fingers and hands. So that wraps up the video on yarn weights. I hope you learned something about yarn today, and if you did, please like the video, comment on it, and as always, check out my channel for tons more crochet content. Have an awesome day.